This is Quantum Flow Radio, organizing thought particles into a flow of collective consciousness.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Happy week.
Happy week. Thanks for having me come over again.
Thanks for dragging yourself all the way over here
All the
because
way
it's
over.
so hard to move the studio. You know, I've done it too many times, trust me.
Yeah, I thought you had the portable
Yeah,
studios.
yeah, that's those were you know what? That surprisingly enough, I mean, not that we're going to go on this topic, but I would imagine in the next maybe 3 to 5 years, probably you'll be able to do an entire complete production in a cell phone, or at least a tablet. Once the processors are up to speed and the quality is good enough, all of this stuff that we see around here will just be relics.
It's like a 2001 Space Odyssey where the guy's looking at a tablet
Yeah.
and he sees news reports and stuff like this. You're thinking, oh my gosh, how did they do that? Now it's on a phone.
Right.
There's no reason, you probably couldn't run the world from a phone in a few years.
There are people out there that have shot films, movies on an iPhone,
Sure.
and they look spectacular.
The iPhone has better resolution than most cameras.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it really is.
So, topics today. We generally have the right to go anywhere we want with this thing, but I was looking at some stuff that was in the news, and the thing that I just can't escape is the division that continues to be taking place. And it's not even well, okay, I'll look at that, or I'll think about this, or, I'll hear your opinion. No, it's either A or B.
It's so black and white.
Right.
I hate to use those colors, but that's what it is.
Yeah, there's no shades of gray. It's just black or white. No color. God forbid we have color, but it's literally I love it or I hate it, or I agree or I disagree. There's nothing else. I've never seen this before.
You almost can't tell anybody, I'm not sure. I just want to sit back and digest it, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. It's immediate response, and it has to be
confrontational,
one side or the other. Pick,
Scary.
choose. It is. I'm not sure if we're made like that.
I don't think we are. I think that among the ancient philosophers back in the day, they'd sit around the table and just talk. Well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And that's how you learn. See, I forgot who it was that said it, but one of my favorite quotes is, I've never learned anything from someone I agree with.
Not only is it how you learn, but it's how things are done. They're done in a creative process. And the creative process, when you're dealing with other people, it's collective.
It has to be
It's
collective.
cumulative. It's you have to work with other people.
Yeah.
And being able to work with other people in an environment is becoming, I think, for a lot of people, more difficult, because what they're doing is they're judging.
Yeah.
They're sizing up, and they're looking at other people as if they're the enemy right off the bat.
Yeah,
not even giving them a chance.
Yeah, not only working collectively, but working collectively for the common good.
Which is the goal of whatever it would be.
Right. But we're spending a lot of time just trying to break things down. For example, my Facebook wall is filled with, all day long, Trump trashing. Okay, whatever it is, use that energy for something good.
Well, these people think it's for good. They think the world is ending, and they think that Trump is bringing it on.
You know this as well as I do.
I'm not defending them. I'm just saying.
Right. No, I know. The entire global environment is under the thumb of basically a crime syndicate, and this family or group of families that call the shots on 3 separate levels: ecclesiastical, financial, and military, are the ones that are, behind it all. So Trump, anyone that's pushed up into that venue, it is theater.
They also have their finger on the religious
Yes.
pulse.
Yes. Exactly.
You brought up when we first started off, you said the division. It's never been like this, at least not in my lifetime, 50 years plus.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's times throughout history that we've had sides. Obviously there's been wars, battles fought, but it's gone deeper, I think, this time, and it's gone deeper on a conscious level, possibly on a conscious and subconscious. They fed us stuff through propaganda, media, everywhere you look. And it's funny, I say, like, when you're awake, you see it everywhere. It's permeated every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
From our food to the water to, of course, all the information we get in. But
And I don't. The mindset is I don't just want to disagree with you, and I don't just want to disprove you. I want to hurt you.
right,
This is what it's come down to.
it's vicious.
Yeah, it is literally, it's a vicious attack. In many cases, verbal, but in other cases, in a physical sense. People are being attacked for no reason, no apparent, no just reason, on the streets, in their businesses, everywhere we look. It's almost like a zombie apocalypse. It's almost like these. I don't want to use the word humans too loosely, but let's say, bipedal earthwalkers are just caught in some trance and just taking no thought over their actions and thoughts.
I think everything's so heavy right now. Heavy in the respect that there's so much coming at us that most people are just using that as a defense mechanism. It's hard to be completely open, free-loving, peace, love, and happiness if you're caught up kind of in the rat race. Also, if you're digesting news, information on a daily basis, they want you to pick sides. Now, the question is whoever designed this did a fantastic job this time around because they have everybody divided.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are, even if you think you're the most middle of the road person, somehow they want you to be on a side.
Yeah.
And you're going to be victimized.
Yeah. And they're drawing everyone in.
Right.
Yeah, for example, if President Bob were in charge, okay, and you were in opposition to President Bob, and you wanted to join this organization that was in opposition to President Bob, well, wouldn't it be brilliant for President Bob and his people to actually not only own and operate the opposition, but to use it to their advantage? So you think you're joining a bunch of people to be against something when, in essence, what you're really doing is joining the same people to further their cause, and you're under an illusion or a delusion that you're actually, getting away with something.
The Facebook phenomenon really comes to mind here. The division is so deep that the people who think they're doing good, and this coattails exactly what you just said, they approach it like, I need to help these people, so I'm going to bring awareness of something out there. And they do it not in a constructive or unbiased manner. They're saying, hey, you're really stupid. You're as stupid as the politician that did this, if you believe it. Doesn't that in fact create the same situation that they're trying to alleviate? They're saying, hey,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's hypocrisy, and the problem is they don't see it. It's right there, and they're doing it, and they're doing it to other people. They're doing the same thing that's coming at them, and they're just shoving it back out.
Yeah.
And it's fear, hate, and just it's creating a division that's running so deep that is going to be really hard. We know there's truth to one side. There has to be. At least one side probably has more truth than the other. And we're aware of that. A lot of these people are going to have a hard time waking up, especially the real vocal ones.
Yeah, and if they are willing to do that. It's a big thing to step forward. I'm not saying admit you're wrong to whoever might be wrong. I'm just saying consider this. Look at this other concept and see if that plays to your soul. See if it plays to that truth meter that's inside of you, that just gives you a little nudge and says, "Hey, how about that?
Right.
What do you think of that?"
The other thing that we've seen, the phenomenon lately, as of late, is people crossing the line. Mm-hmm. And, you see Hollywood, actors and actresses, or I guess we just call them actors,
Try to be PC about it.
they're very outspoken, using language, power, but more importantly, they're being vicious in their attacks.
Yeah.
And you'll see,
and childish in some cases.
Well, sure, it is, because you're just, you're lowering yourself really at that point, and they haven't been able to rise above or collectively say, well, let's get behind this and maybe things could be okay. They're deconstructive as opposed to
constructive.
Constructive, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. The thing that really is difficult to deal with is that it hurts my heart. The person that I am inside this bag of skin, as Ellen Watts used to say, it hurts my heart, my soul, my own being, to see people in such opposition and hatred towards each other. It's not even it's not even a national thing anymore. We've become an international territory, globally, and the lines are beginning to get thinner and thinner and thinner between nations, simply because of telecommunications, internet, radio, television, all of these things. And you can flip on Al Jazeera, you can do whatever you want. At least in this country, you can for now. But what's brought people closer together seems to be the very same thing that's now causing division. And is that part of the scheme, the global scheme? Was it beautifully and incredibly brilliantly engineered, or did it just happen that way?
I have to think that somebody was behind this, and not just somebody, but it's too brilliantly laid out. Also, there's too many pieces of evidence that harkens back to the fact that most of Hollywood, the media, all the information that we're getting, whether it be entertainment or news, we'll define it as that, is coming at us with a pre-scripted narrative. And if you look at it, a lot of it's not true. Mm-hmm. It's propaganda. Mm-hmm. And the sad part of it is, here in America, most people, you go up to them and say, "Hey, do you think you're brainwashed?" And they're like, "Of course not. I'm the last person who would be brainwashed." But you wouldn't know if you're being brainwashed.
Right.
So at least I'm going to sit here and say, hey, I'm sure I have been brainwashed through my life, but I hope that I've looked at it and I can step back from that and realize that, yes, I have been influenced by many things, but I can detach myself from that now. I don't need to own these things. At least I know where it's coming from. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's been eloquently, sophisticatedly brought on to us in a slow, methodical way.
A program.
Programming, exactly.
Yeah.
Where, you're just not, most people just, if it's a slow, deep freeze, you're not going to see it.
It's the like frog in the pot.
The frog in the pot.
Yeah.
Bring up the temperature slowly as opposed to.
Yeah. Well, go back to programming. It's an educational program. It's a news program.
And they tell you that right on the
it's a television
label
program. See, so okay, well, so we're not being programmed? No, yes, we are, because these are all programs. It may not be in the way that you think that we're being programmed, but we are being programmed.
What do you think the end goal then? Okay, so say there is a group that, they own the media, the news, they disseminate information to us. What do you think they want? I mean,
they want us to build the hive for them.
Do you think these people, and I don't mean to be funny, like, are they here to take over the world?
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, seriously, what do they want?
Well, they can't take over the world because they already have.
It's pretty much.
Yeah. So, but they want to maintain that.
But you have to.
For some people, enough is never enough. It's got to be more. And not only the attitude is, well, I want to have more than you have. No, it's I want to have more than you have, but I want you to have nothing. And that's what's taking place in a lot of places. This year alone, we're going to, we'll lose 5 million human beings to hunger in Africa. That's 5 million people per year. That doesn't have to happen.
No.
We have enough food and water and shelter to go around for everybody on this planet many times over.
That's the big lie that they tell us, that we don't
shortages.
have enough oil or
Right.
food or resources, but we have plenty. Everyone could be taken care of if everybody consciously thought about loving and taking care of everybody that's on the earth right now. I have no doubt that would happen.
And that's what we're supposed to do.
That's what we're supposed to do, and that's
the default.
But this this malicious group wants to tear us apart. I think that they do have control. Obviously, they have money and control, and they have control over us. But it's becoming tougher, harder to control people. So you have to go deeper, and I think it's the deepness affects how we think and what we do, and that's on a conscious level. So they've attacked us so many different ways, making us sick, in debt, dependent, subservient to a central state or whatever, when in fact our true calling is one of freedom and taking care of ourselves and our family. Obviously, we can't do everything, but a more simpler community probably would make a lot more people happy.
Absolutely. I mean, look at our military budget. If you look at the billions of dollars that are spent daily trying to figure out the best way to annihilate people, and if we just put some of that into,
you could feed people, like you said. Yeah,
feeding people, taking care of people. Yet the human spirit still shines through in the rarest of instances. For example, you have all of these people at war, all of this hatred, all of this, war and disease and famine and blah, blah, blah. But yet a child gets sick from some event in Siberia, and all of a sudden there are enough people to rally air transport to get this kid from, some remote location in Siberia to, the top hospital in New York City to have this life-saving procedure, okay? And it's just a kid. So why aren't all the kids that valuable? Why aren't all the people that valuable? Why? I don't think that was to show off. This happens all the time. I don't think it's because the helicopter pilot wants to say, well, I'm the guy that flew the kid from Siberia to, Nemours. And, I don't think that's what it's about. I think the human spirit is still there. There's just a lot of stuff that's been swept on top of it all, and just a lot of crud that's stuck to it.
I think there's a lot of feel-good stories. You could fill the news with people being completely altruistic, loving to other people, great stories, just like that. But that doesn't serve their purpose.
No.
And I'm going to be really brutally honest here from what I think. They want to deplete the population of the earth. They don't want all these people thriving, surviving. They really want to kill off as many people as possible. And I'm going to bring up, you see these wildfires.
They put the Georgia Guidestones up just to
Well,
tell us about it.
Georgia Guidestones, exactly. And the funny thing is that a lot of people don't know what that is. But it's a monument outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
It was about 33 years ago, I think.
Yeah, magic number.
Yeah. It was put up by R.C.
Christian. Yeah.
And this person doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
The money, they don't know where it came from. The land was acquired and it was put up.
And it's not cheap.
No. And
It's like
these
a small Stonehenge-looking thing.
It is very much like Stonehenge. And some people even talk about the location where it's at, that it lines up in these kind of ley lines or whatever, but it has an energy. Obviously, Atlanta is Atlantis.
Yeah.
But to get back to the Guidestones, I mean, right on them says the human population of the world will be, I don't know, what was it?
I think it was brought down
100
to
million or something like that.
500 million, I
Yeah,
think, something like that.
Well, it's significantly less. What is there? 320 million people in America or something
Right.
like that. Okay, and then China has 1.3 billion people. Well, there's a lot of people on the earth, but if you look around, unless you're in a really crowded city, hey, there's enough room for everybody.
Yeah.
But they don't like this. They
Because there's power in numbers.
They can't just wipe us out one way. It's a multi-pronged, multifaceted plan that goes out to us, and
One in which they'll make money on.
well, of course, they that money and gain power over it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, what they've done is these malevolent forces have literally created monopolies in so many different industries and facets of us as the consumers that we're just, all we can do is just use the products, or in fact, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, you mentioned products, and see, that's another way. You see, if you are in the healthcare industry, let's say, okay, and you are a leader in the healthcare industry, or part of big pharma, or the medical device implant industry, or the hospitals in general, there's a lot of money to be made on healthcare.
Oodles.
Yeah, oodles, immeasurable amounts of money, lots of ones and zeros, and if you want to talk about depopulation, in the process of depopulation, why not make some money at it? So let's not just drop a bomb and wipe out 3.5 billion people.
Well, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
it has to be more covertly done.
Sure. So let's put stuff in their food, and let's put some stuff in their water. And let's put up these cell towers and design this 5G network and come up with smart meters from the power company, and let's just radiate them slowly.
And let's do some spraying in the air.
Sure,
I know
some chemtrails. Yeah. why
Sure.
not?
I mean, we're not going to sit here and deny that something is going on up there.
Look, those pilots aren't that good at flying those lines.
And I've gotten into debates with people. People will vehemently say, "No, you're stupid. Those are just
Conspiracy stuff.
yeah." But the fact is that all you have to do is look up.
Yeah.
Get off your phone. Unlatch yourself from your tablet for a minute. Just look up in the sky. And it may not just be one afternoon, but you may have to do it a couple days. But just look up there and see what's going on. It's pretty clear. We didn't have this going on, 30, 40 years ago. But it's been going on a long time. And the long-term effects, we don't know. But we know that through scientific evidence, there's increased levels of aluminum, barium, strontium, and all these other harmful heavy metals.
And they're not falling out of the trees.
Not coming from the trees. They're not coming from the insects.
Nope.
Not coming from us. It has to be coming from somewhere. But it's somehow coming down on us, probably through the rain.
Now imagine. I'm sorry to jump in, but imagine with nanotechnology, the direction that it's going in. Imagine having particles that are actually programmable particles mixed into the air or dropped into the air. And then you're actually breathing it in and ingesting it, and
They
then
say that's already happening.
Okay,
I mean, who
well,
knows that's not happening?
yeah.
I mean,
So then we can now go, since we're just water, air, some carbon, and a few other things that can easily be controlled from the outside in and from the inside out.
Right.
So I'm looking around at the state of many of our cities, in the inner cities, in some places. Chicago comes to mind because.
It's been in the news.
Yeah. And, I look at all that. I'm like, does somebody just wake up today after, 25 years of being on Earth and say, well, I'm just going to go kill somebody? I don't know. Is that commonplace, or do you think that something is actually helping them along this journey of gloom and doom?
You already know the answer to that.
Well, I
think.
do. Yeah, I do. But when you look at it, you think to yourself, and then there's always the neighbor, Well, I don't understand. Bob was such a nice guy. He was out, he played with his kids in the backyard, and he's, working in his garden every day, and all of a sudden he just blew up his whole house and his family. Don't know what happened.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't know what happened? Something went wrong.
It's like
I don't think they just snapped.
right. Yeah, the questions bring like this Las Vegas shooter.
Right.
All of a sudden, bam, he just does this. So there's probably more to the backstory that we don't know,
And we'll never know.
and we may never know. Or
It's not ours to know.
well, see, some of us think that in this great awakening, that all these questions we have, even to the littlest storylines, that we'll find out one day. I mean, that's kind of like, you want to see how it ends or how it turns out.
Well, if it's out there, thoughts are energy. We know
Right.
that. So once it's created, once that thought is thought about, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, it's now energy. It won't ever go away. It's going to go out there somewhere.
You brought up probably the most important thing is that it is all now energy. And unless it goes away, that means it's present. And I'm going to bring up, there's another touchy subject. We keep hitting all these somewhat a little bit of the conspiracy type stuff today. Not that that's our main focus, but it does interplay with who we are. And if we've been lied to on any level with big, significant historical events, it affects us. Mm-hmm. And it diminishes our conscious awareness because we're filled with lies. And that's why, like the Kennedy assassination is still gnawing at so many people. Because what happens with us when we are told a lie, it doesn't settle into us. It's not harmonious into our natural construct, say. And we know something's awry. Something's not right. And if we feel it from our gut, from our intuition, that something doesn't sit right, doesn't make sense, doesn't add up, guess what? It probably doesn't.
Right.
At least not in the full capacity of what we've been told. Maybe little bits and tidbits are true, but the overall story is affecting human consciousness, and it's like a thorn in our side. We're not going to be able to rest easy until we know the truth. And that's why some of this stuff is just hasn't gone away.
And we have to listen within because so many people are involved in a knee-jerk reaction.
Correct.
Rather than just taking a moment, thinking about it for count to 10, whatever it is, and then respond. You mentioned intuition. Tuition is what? It's a fee that's paid to learn something, right?
Yes.
So intuition is that learning that comes from within that we pay for by being here, by learning, by remembering, you see,
Right.
and by listening. If we don't listen to that still small voice that's inside, the one that says, hey, it's 11:30 at night and that alley looks pretty sketchy. You might want to go the long way around the block.
Yeah, it's going to take a few minutes to get home, more time to get home. But guess what? That's my intuition saying that's the safe pathway.
Right, and what do? We go walking in the alley and we get mugged. And lose all our money and get beat up. So why didn't we listen?
And then you talk to yourself and say, why did I do that? I knew something was going to happen. Well, if you knew it, then why did you do it?
Exactly.
So what we have to do, and this is I've done a lot with my life over the last few years where I very much listen. I think like I'm missing out on stuff because sometimes my pathway takes me away from something and I go, maybe I should have done that. But you know what? It didn't feel right, so I just let it go. And I can feel that I'm a little bit more connected to my environment by paying attention to it and then listening to that and then not reacting like, running off on a tangent.
And taking your ego by the reins. So many times I'll be, on social media, Facebook, whatever, and somebody will post something, and I've got a couple of minutes, so I'll be like, all right, here we go, and right before I hit the key, that little something says, you don't want to do this. It's just not. Don't even get involved. You know what I mean? And then I don't, and then I just walk away. But the old me, I'd have been there for probably 2 hours, back and forth. Oh, yeah, well, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't, when someone's mind is set on something, it's really difficult to have them see anything other than what they're looking at. I'm not saying that I want to change their mind. I'm not saying that I want to change their direction of thought. I don't want to make them think the way that I do. I just want them to think.
Never in my, I'm not a heavy poster on Facebook. I am I do have a Facebook account, like
You're a
most
lurker.
of those. I know.
You lurk.
Yeah. Well, we do check it, but
sure.
I've never posted anything even as profound as I thought it was, and I never had anybody who was like on the other side of the argument say, "Oh my gosh, you showed me the light. You're so right. You're brilliant. Thank you. My life is fulfilled." See, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And their ego's never going to let them go there.
Yeah.
Maybe you lay a seed, and they're, in the back of their mind, they're going, okay, well, maybe. But, they're not going to come and commit to it right there. At least maybe you lay it out, and as things progress, Facebook is really a phenomenon right now, and it's they're censoring stuff. A lot of conservative people that had platforms, they're just eradicating it, and this is true on Twitter. This is recent, and obviously YouTube videos have been banned, or shut down. So this is unfolding. What's happening is, why is this happening? Is the conscious awareness getting so great that the deep state, so to speak, is pulling out everything out of their arsenal, and the only thing they can do now is censorship, which we saw in several different types of civilizations. But everyone talks about pre-World War II, that a lot of what's going on right now is the same thing that might have happened in Germany and stuff. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But these monopolies, Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, if they don't like what you're talking about, they'll shut you down somehow.
Yeah, it's fertile ground, and seeds are planted.
But what happened to free speech?
Yeah, well, those are weeds.
Oh, I see.
So
get the Roundup.
Yeah, so get the Roundup.
Monsanto.
And
or Bear
do that,
Company.
because exactly. You look at all of these things, these seeds that are planted on social media, and it's kind of like it's okay until it goes too far. This is me being like the global elite guy looking at it, going, okay, wait a minute. Nah, that's a little too far. We gotta pull that back a little bit. So let's take that out. Take it out of the mix. It's the old, accuse somebody of what you're already doing and then lie about it. But when they start figuring it out, then you have to redirect.
You've seen that a lot. You've seen a lot of people accusing other people of the same thing that they're doing. This is the hypocrisy that we talked about. I guess that happens because the first party understands the relationship. So they can accuse somebody else of it because they know the ins and outs of it.
Right.
They can get their arms
They've
around
either
it.
done it or they know how to do it.
And so they can just plant it in your court and then accuse you of it, and know how to accuse you of it, and then how to set you up. And then, hey, I didn't do this.
Right. And then you just call the lawyers, and it'll go on for years.
Yeah. You always have to call the lawyers.
Yeah, you always have to call lawyers, and then it'll go on for years. And unfortunately, law is being practiced in English, which is a very poor language to try to define with any clarity in a legal field. That's why they use Latin and Greek and German and all these other different languages in the original law books, because English is just kind of we walk around all day going, well, what do you mean by that?
Great point, because I really believe that our language has been rewritten right in front of us. The words, the meanings are changing.
Yes.
And it's kind of like one of our previous presidents said, what is the definition of is?
Yeah.
When you start bringing into question these things, you start scratching your head and going, wow, have we really deviated that far from, a clear understanding of what this means?
There was a word I was looking up the other night. I don't even remember the word. It's irrelevant. Well, that's not the word, but I'm looking it up, and I'm online, and I go to all the different, I go to Merriam-Webster and dictionary.com and all these different, and Cambridge and all these different sources to try to find it. And then I have my, 1920 dictionary upstairs in the library.
Webster's.
That was, before a lot of the changes. So I look these things up, and there's, not only are there many times 4 and 5 different meanings for the same word, but then each one of the sites that is a, quote, dictionary site, and linguistic-based site, all of their 4 or 5 definitions vary. So you really can just make it to be whatever you want it to be, sort of, kind of,
Yeah.
And where does that leave us? Ultimately, in this world conversation that we're having, it's just it's gonna be the Tower of Babel again. We're all gonna be walking around going, what are you saying? What does that mean? And so many times, even in the news, watching some of the news sources and the words they use and the descriptions that they give are either so vague or you just can't even figure out what they're talking about. I remember in the old days when you would flip on a live news event, let's say, okay, the cameras are out, there's something going on downtown, there's a bunch of ambulances and fire trucks and police everywhere and, helicopter sounds and all that. And it's now live news coverage of this event. In the old days, they would say, hey, in case you just joined us, we're in downtown Dallas and here's what's going on. You don't even get that anymore. It could be any city, anywhere in America, and they're not even going to tell you what it is. If you listen long enough, you might be able to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Or generally just kind of look at the background, or you try to look for a sign on a building and maybe figure out where it is. But even the news people who are giving you the news aren't really paying attention to what they're reporting. I've seen clips of news people that, anchor people that seem to be, they come back from a commercial and they're just like literally staring into nowhere. Almost in just some sort of a hypnotic trance. And then, boom, and they're right back again. My days in broadcasting, and there were a few, you have to pay attention whether you're in the middle of a commercial set or not.
I thought the people listening were in the hypnotic trance.
That too.
That too, yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at, there was a video that was on YouTube that took the same news story and went to all these different television stations and just made like every other word, edited them together, and they were saying the same thing.
No doubt, I would say that most of the important news is all scripted. Here, in the past, you'd have actual people that went out and investigated stories, mm-hmm. and nowadays, I think they basically got rid of a lot of those people. Obviously, these news medias have had to thin down, because their profit is off. I mean, right. Mass media is just getting crushed right now because people are realizing they're just, when you turn on the television, you just want to hear a little bit of national news at night, and it's the same story night after night, hour after hour, really, just the same story. I mean, they're not reporting news. They're not reporting current events. There's, you really don't know what's going on in the world. They funnel the information so thin that all you're getting is just this little sliver.
What they want you to have.
And unfortunately, that sliver is a lie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be that forward about it. There's nothing. In fact, it was many years ago. I have to be careful here. Well, I won't disclose any names, but there was a gentleman who worked at the CIA. And, I was friendly with him. This is 20 years ago. And he took me, I remember it was like a little gathering. And he looked at me and says, don't believe anything that the news tells you. And I'm like, what? I didn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
I looked at him very perplexed and said, there's got to be, that's because 20 years ago.
Walter wouldn't lie to me,
no,
right?
Yeah. But the fact is that was so forward thinking. I mean, that must have been happening back then. But, he felt comfortable to tell me, obviously, because I have an inquisitive mind. Now, I didn't really fully kind of wake up till after that, but I see there's been moments in my life where people have come to me or information that has guided me or trying to help me, and as difficult it was to understand some of this information at the time, it all made sense at a later date. So I needed to practice patience and just say, okay, well, we're going to store this, and it may not be usable right now, but I'm gonna hold on to that and understand that when I hear stuff, I don't have to believe it if it doesn't make sense, or at least understand that it's being brought to me through a group that's manipulating information.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you look at it, there's very few people who really own and control these things.
Sure, and if you look at it historically, world events, politics, religion, whatever, just pick a topic.
Yeah, anything.
If you weren't there, if you didn't, experience it while it was happening at that moment, then we really don't know even if it happened.
History was written by the victors, of course.
Right,
So-
exactly. But I mean, okay, this might sound a little silly, but come on. Paris, I've never been to Paris. I've seen pictures, I've seen movies, I've seen, people talking about it, but do I really know that Paris is there? I can only assume through someone else's experiences.
It exists because enough people have manifested that city.
Yeah, but
to say
for
it's
me
there.
to actually experience
You don't know.
the
You don't know
reality
what's-
of Paris, I have to go there.
You don't know what's going on outside this room. In fact, it may not exist until you actively go there.
Are there? Yeah,
There.
until the observed needs an observer.
Yeah.
And
You
you
know,
can't have either one without the other.
In a way, you can really take a lot of weight off your shoulders because a lot of people try to control everything.
Mm-hmm.
But all you have is the now moment, right now, what I'm doing right now. I'm interacting with you, and that's all there is. They've taken our attention away from this. And when you take your attention away from now and you put it in either in the past, which is obviously regret, or in the future, which is fear of what will happen, it puts you in dis-ease
Yes.
and an unrest situation. And then that causes stress. It wears on us, and it doesn't really complete us. So that's what they've done. It's everywhere. I mean,
Yeah, I had a friend of mine that was a pastor for many years.
he may still be.
Yes, had an interesting insight on Calvary and the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth and all that, because there were 3 crosses, and there were 2 thieves, one on either side. So as the story is told through the centuries, those 2 thieves, fear and guilt, or any other thing that's stealing us from the center, the present moment, the now, the intersection between, spirit and matter, that place where man becomes the divine spark that is deep within us, that's sort of that GPS that's kind of guiding us, that the ego gets in the way of. But when we use that, when we say, God, that bug looks, like I really shouldn't touch it. Nature has its way of, telling you don't touch, like porcupines, eels, things like that. But, we have a tendency to just want to explore stuff, and I think it's that child in us that doesn't think that they're going to get hurt, and
It's like when I want to pet your dog. And,
right. And he wants to take your fingers
he
off.
wants to eat me. my
Right.
hand
So,
off.
but over the course of time, we all just kind of harden,
Yeah.
and we get a little rougher and a little less compassionate. And I think that gets taken advantage of, and they get people to turn on each other. I mean, you've seen with the election processes and political things like that. Again, we go back to social media, but there are family members that don't talk to each other anymore.
Oh, no.
There are friends that were best friends their whole lives, and they don't even have anything to do with each other anymore.
I've never seen this before. We always used to be able to cohabitate with friends and family that
Right.
we didn't necessarily agree with, and that was actually kind of a good thing. If we all sat around and agreed, there wouldn't be a whole lot to talk about. Or learn.
It was Henry Ford when he started manufacturing automobiles. I think he said you can have any color you want as long as it's black.
Right.
So we have Baskin Robbins today. What would it be like for less than 31 flavors? But yet we're trying to pigeonhole everything into one way of thinking, one viewpoint, one source of information. Everything is getting,
One right answer.
one right answer.
Yeah.
Everything is getting compartmentalized into just one box.
It's like Snopes,
yes,
which is probably one of the worst fact check.
right. We need a Snopes. We need a Snopes for Snopes.
We need a Snopes on Snopes. In fact,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even use that word because it just denotes, just wrong answer.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, and this is come to the point where it's everywhere. It's pervasive in social media, all the social media. I mean, back in the day when the internet first came about, you had you had MySpace, you had lots of options and stuff. All the web was a great way you could check stuff. Now you can go to DuckDuckGo, which doesn't track that's a good bit of information. Use that as a search engine instead of Google. But the social media is all controlled by we're not being funny, but just a few people,
Yeah.
a few organizations.
Sure.
The food
Like
industry.
3,000 or so.
Yeah, the food industry.
Worldwide.
Most of the food products on your shelf all use GMO, and they're all produced or controlled by either Cargill, Monsanto, or
Nestle,
something like that.
somebody like
Nestle,
that,
something
yeah.
like that. You go on to
The media.
well, the media is obviously very clear. What is there, 5 or 6
Maybe.
media companies when not that long ago there might have been 30? I mean, you're a casualty of that, and I say that casualty meaning that you couldn't do what you used to do.
No, there's no way.
There's no way. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. Just like a comedian can't do what they used to do.
Right.
It's just not politically correct anymore.
Right.
We're being told how to act, how to think, how to behave, and what's politically correct and what's acceptable for everybody. And yet, what did I see the other day? Something about pedophiles wanting to be considered.
They want to legalize pedophilia.
Yeah,
This
some
is
alternative lifestyle thing.
See, this is when I know that we're getting close. I have a very strong inner guide that tells me when we're a little bit off the track or we're way off the tracks. And when I see groups, people trying to, I think in France, they literally just somehow they put forth some legislation that's saying if the child who's underage consents,
Yeah.
that it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And from a person that's, I'm not going to go there, but I'm familiar with this because as a child, I had a situation where I was abused. It's very difficult to talk about.
First-hand experience, experiential evidence.
Let me just tell you, disgusting, horrid, just it affected me, and luckily, by the God's grace, my mom came in
Right.
and
Right.
stopped it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you,
But
this
you
is,
don't want,
this
you don't
is
want
going
that
on.
for anyone else.
No, but it's more than that because it's not just even a sexual thing. They're child trafficking people for multitudinous of reasons
Sure.
everywhere, and it's in the news now. I mean, you never even heard this term, but it's coming out. It's percolating, and that's why I know that we're getting to a point where we're going to hit a wall. It has to happen, but too many things are coming out. And I'm so glad to see this. Everything that's really happening is for a good reason or has a reason, whether we see the true purpose of it or not. All these movements, the women's movement, the black movement, even the white movement, whatever. Everyone's trying to, I guess, hold on to, their culture or whatever. But the pedophilia extends into all aspects of our life, and it's happening everywhere. And it's happening in the political arena. It's happening with your Boy Scouts. Sorry to tell you.
Yeah.
It's happening in the music industry. It's how they groom a lot of
Church.
these people. Church. Oh, my
Everywhere.
gosh. Especially, yeah. The
everywhere.
Cardinals and stuff. And it has to be brought out into the light, as dirty and as disgusting as it is. And these people that think that it's okay, they've been misguided. They've been misguided by the dark forces. Satan's hard at work trying to convince you that what you know is not right inside of your gut. They're trying to tell you, hey, it's okay. Hey, sure, go for it. But the repercussions.
Just don't get caught.
Yeah. Well, the fact is
that's
that
what they're hearing. Just don't get caught.
Yeah, people need to be accountable for themselves. I think you tarnish your soul, your spirit. It's something you can't remove.
Yeah.
And you're going to live your life with it for the rest of this life and maybe even longer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see how important it is to align yourself with good intentions, be nice to people. You should never take advantage of anybody else, especially on that level.
Right.
Somebody underage, it's horrible. They don't know any better. I think this is one of the greatest sins. You can do a lot of things, but this is, I think, absolutely crossing the line. And I'm glad you brought it up. That wasn't our main focus here, but I'm glad we got to.
Well, it's
put it out
important.
there.
It's paramount.
But you fix that problem, and
It's like you said, the trafficking and all that. Now we're seeing organs being traded.
that's all part of it. Yeah.
All harvested. That's the word, I guess. Harvesting organs now.
Yeah.
It's. I don't know.
No,
I'm at a loss for words.
And there is no words. And as long as somebody is speaking up and doing something about it, it was very interesting. I apologize. I can't remember the woman's name, whether it was Singer or somebody, but it was the woman that created Planned Parenthood.
Mm.
And a lot of people that defend Planned Parenthood need.
Boy, she had some bad karma, huh?
Well, you need to. All you have to do is, people just. You can't accept information that comes to you. Do your own research. Go back and see who started Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. Didn't
see what the woman
she ultimately commit suicide?
I think so.
Yeah.
But also the reason why Planned Parenthood was created was it was they put them in cities and they were directed towards minorities, and they really wanted, it's part of this depopulation.
Stop the population.
Yeah,
Stop,
exactly. They
stop
don't want
making babies.
They don't want certain populations, creating babies, and they may say, well, this is a benefit and stuff, and sure, in some certain circumstances, I'm open-minded enough to know that some people absolutely have to do certain things. They may not be able to have the baby or whatever.
Right.
But when it's as easy as going in and ordering a meal or whatever at a restaurant, this is where we,
especially without the proper amount of counseling and research,
right,
and caring and loving towards that person before they make a decision that involves that.
I saw a picture on Facebook of a woman that was last term about to have her baby and said in, I forget what state, maybe Texas, for her to have an abortion was still legal at that point. So this is, the child, I don't want to get into the religious, whether, the child is a child at that point or it has to be born. The fact is that we need to look within ourselves at this time. I just think things are just getting way far off track. We've been desensitized to so many different things, and it's a lot of things.
And the rules differ so
pedophilia.
much. I mean, when you're, like, for example, you were saying about the lady that was, maybe last term. If she had a horrible car accident, some drunk guy hit her at an intersection and killed her and her unborn child, that's double homicide or infanticide, whatever it's called.
Right.
That child counts in the eyes of the law for that kind of situation. But not for the other.
Right.
Yeah. So this is there's mixed signals from all over the place. And really all of this stuff should just come down to what does it say inside? I mean,
right.
There's so much distraction. There's so much noise that many people can't hear that direction that's coming from within.
The laws that have been put in place enable people to do this, and they're in a position of power where they can tell you one thing, and for example, just with this. it's just beyond words.
It is all of it. These subjects are they're tough to talk about, for many people they are personal. There are experiences that people have squashed or suppressed or can't stop thinking about. It's all over the place. But the bottom line is, if people would just spread love, compassion, kindness, understanding, all the positive emotions, then that's what would continue to grow, and that's what would continue to take seed in the field, and then we could pick out those little weeds here and there, you know what I mean? But we're not. That doesn't seem to be the goal of anyone. We don't have any leaders that are stellar human beings, as far as perhaps even a sage or an avatar or someone of great knowledge and understanding and loving and caring.
A true leader that transcends all walks of life,
Exactly.
all humanity.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Not look up to them as some sort of a god, but look up to them and say, here's an example. This is a person of humanitarian quality. The word human literally means the mind of God. And I don't mean that from just a strictly religious standpoint, but Hu, Hu, is the ancient Egyptian god who spoke the world into existence. Man comes from Manu, the Sanskrit word that means essentially mind or mankind. So to be human is to be in the right mind, in the mind of perfection, in the mind of love and caring and compassion and understanding. And unfortunately, we don't really have any of that.
I think in some respect we need to take a little bit on ourselves in that
To look within instead of just without.
yeah, I'm just thinking maybe this is it. We've had so many teachings and we're here to remember everything. The fact is that maybe a lot of this is all coded inside of us, and individually maybe we need to be come to terms with it. But I agree with you. We at some point we're going to need leaders, and leaders that are not just business people, certainly not politicians. Let's just call them humans.
Yeah.
People, real people that have experienced life without all the pomp and circumstance. To see a lot of these politicians getting rich, they come to office with very little and they leave with millions of dollars. There's something disconnect there.
And not
It's
just rich, but
Filthy
incalculable rich, And it's every day. I mean, now we're seeing, in I don't want to talk about current news events or anything like that and mention names and such, but I mean, every day somebody's coming out in trouble again. Or they lied about this, or they cheated that, or
yes.
they stole this, or they, misappropriated that and misused this. And, I mean, every day. And these are people of power. These are, quote, leaders that have been put in place.
Right.
That are not setting the example for the right way to run things.
A lot of people would ask, how does a goodwill person who wants to do good for the community get caught up in that? It comes down to, campaign contributions, favors. If you want to get in office, you got to help us out when you get in there. And then once they commit to that, they've corrupted themselves. I hate to be that black and white, but the fact that these people, I think they originally or initially have good intentions, and then once they get into the system, they become part of the system. And the system is corrupt. The system is corporatocracy. The system is owned. America, unfortunately, is not the land of the free. You've been sold an illusion.
Yeah.
And America is run by corporations. It's like in that movie, Network.
Yeah. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah. But the most telling part of the movie is where he gets in with the guy, the head of the guy, the head of the network.
Yeah.
And he goes, Mr. Beale, America is a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, what? Come on. But when you track that back, in fact,
It's a maritime corporation.
you know what? You brought up, we were talking about words earlier in the definition.
Yeah.
There's a word that's really, it keeps coming up and bothering me, but I think we talked about what the meaning is of some of these words, and it's changed. But fascism,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just looked it up the other day, and I always thought the original meaning was the miring of government and corporations, where you have that. But a lot of people use fascism. They'll accuse the current president of fascism, or they'll accuse this group of fascism, and it's just a term that's just thrown everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and people define it differently. And I'm not going to sit here and try to define it any more than that, but that's the point, is that the word has almost lost all meaning because it's being misused and misrepresented. But it's not a good thing. It's literally what is happening. Our government, as many governments throughout the world, have been overtaken by corporations or that kind of interest, and it's through control and everything else. But I think people are understanding that now. They're
And
seeing
lobbyists and
lobbyists.
special gifts.
Yeah, it's all connected. And if you're
Where do they get this money? I mean, it's absurd money. I mean, I saw an article not too long ago. It talked about the 10 wealthiest U.S. presidents. Donald Trump being the most wealthy.
but he had his money before he came.
Yeah, but still a wealthy president on
Oh,
the
sure.
list. So $3.7 billion. Bill Clinton worth $80 million. We're not talking about small amounts of money. I think George Washington at the time was, like $50 million even back
But
then.
he had money before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
I'd rather my president
how did
have-
they? Yeah, how
have
did
money.
they get there? Why don't we just get an average Joe in there who really has the knowledge and the ability to pull this thing together?
Well, I think some people wanted an average Joe, a guy named Joe Biden, but I used to work at a company, and the head of the company knew Joe Biden personally,
Mm-hmm.
and talked of him as being not the sharpest crown in the crown box.
Yeah.
So the thing is that it's hard to get behind anyone. Politicians are probably some of the most corrupt people, and you're just seeing that now.
Yeah, and time will tell. I mean, look at if you go back in time and see what these people are doing after their fame and their high positions and things like that. When you look at Jimmy Carter, I mean, he's 90-some years old. He's still out there slamming a hammer,
Yeah,
and building houses for people.
he's kind of a rock star. I mean, you have to appreciate, he may not have been the best president, but the fact is that
He's a nice man.
he's a nice man and he's a human. So there you go. So you said, where's your average? Although he probably had a little bit of money from his peanut farm.
Yeah.
The fact is that it seems like money and power always come together.
Yeah.
Their paths cross.
Yeah, almost inseparable.
Yeah. So you become president, you'll be wealthy, or you have money before. I mean, like a Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or the Roosevelts had money.
Yeah.
These people, they network and they're in the circles which would allow them to be brought up. And a lot of people think that possibly even Trump, even though he had this idea of running himself many, many years ago, they say that he might have been recruited
Yeah.
by a whole bunch of white hats, as we call good people within the government, that saw the direction we were going and said this has to stop. We're going to take our country back as we were going to take back our freedom, and America is probably one of the most important aspects or most important country in the world right now. It's almost as if we're leading the charge, because I think Europe was halfway down the toilet, and I hate to say that, but I have friends that live over there in different countries, and they've seen the changes. This immigration, it disrupts the fabric and the culture of the people. Language, culture, and food, very, very important.
Yeah.
Like if you go to Spain, you don't want to eat at McDonald's.
Right.
Or if you go to Italy, you want to get some of the food and some of the culture and the music. This is what's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And they just want to flatten that out.
Yeah.
Let them be them, if we can all embrace each other with all our differences and stuff, I think that's what makes life interesting. But if you try to create the same homogeny of everything everywhere you go, that's what they were looking for.
Imagine a department store with no departments.
Exactly.
You try to find something, it'd be horrible. And also imagine a department store that didn't offer certain stuff because you filed a lawsuit against them and they can no longer carry coffee machines because they bother you.
Right.
See? Instead of
Or you don't drink coffee. So
or you don't drink coffee. So instead of just walking past the coffee machine section and go get your juicer or whatever, now you don't want them to carry the coffee machines, because you're offended or because, whatever it might be. And it's gotten to the point where politically correct is, we touched on this earlier, but it's just out of control. I remember my first grade teacher telling me, well, if I did it for you, I'd have to do it for everyone.
We've heard this.
Yeah. So the problem right now is that we're now at a point where it's like, well, because I don't want it, you can't have it either. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People are trying to take away stuff and introduce stuff based on their own liking or opinion, but don't want anybody else's stuff involved.
I see this a lot of times where people will say that if I did this for you, then I'll have to do it for everybody. And I understand that, but what it comes down to is they're abiding by some rule or law that's man-made. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we need to go deeper than that. We need to say, what is morally right? Does this person really need help right now? Mm. I'm not saying go against the rules. We're all in jobs and we have to abide by, the laws and practices of whatever business we're working with. But I think there's a higher calling right now. And this PC culture is doing much more harm than good. And although it's probably the intention of it was to be, hey, let's be fair.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if everything was supposed to be set up to be fair. See, I think kind of life is this. It's a freedom thing.
Yeah.
If you want to succeed, if you want to be real rich, if you want to pursue something, I think you should be able to do that. If you want to have a simple life, then that's fine. But at some point, our moral compass will guide us all, hopefully, to the right place.
Yeah. And we have to reach a point where we just have to think to ourselves, things happen.
Right.
And how are we going to respond to that? And how are we going to react to it? Is it going to be knee-jerk or are we going to take our time? Is it going to, are we going to try to bring somebody else into our pain? Or do we just take it, learn from it, and move forward? Unfortunately, time will tell. It's always been that way. We'll know how things will turn out when we get there. And guess what? When we get there, it'll still be now.
Right.
And where else would it be? Where else would it go? So we unfold the future with each and every nanosecond. Why not put the best into it and make it a great future for everybody, whether you're going to be here or not?
You'll always have a new now moment. In fact, we just had one there. And then
right
we have
there.
Another one right now.
And right here, yeah.
So you can start the process
at any time.
Anytime.
Yeah.
It's never too late. A lot of people look back and go, oh, I missed that or whatever. But guess what? If you're thinking about it right now, you can do it right now. Sure, this is all easier said than done. A lot of people have a lot on their plate, and they just go, hey, I just don't think I can do that. But if you really want it and you know that that's what your calling is, then it will fall in place. Yeah. The people, the events, the information, the money, whatever you need for you to go down a moral path of goodness, love, and caring. And it doesn't mean you have to run the 5K for the cancer awareness, or you don't have to give every bit of your money to an organization or church. In fact, I think it's a lot easier than that. Your conscious thought does more things than you can imagine. Mm-hmm. Thinking about things and thinking of other people, other groups in good, caring, compassionate love and light is amazing. That vibration is just spreads, and it goes out, and it goes out quickly, and it goes out to a lot of people.
And it's measurable.
And
You know,
it's-
each time they have any type of an event that brings the world together for a moment, it can be captured from space. You know, when people are locked into a positive, you know, loving event, even if it's just a moment of silence for something that happened that the world recognizes, you can actually measure the energy of unity in that process of thought. If we just sit down and you have 7 billion people that are thinking at that moment just wonderful thoughts, great thoughts, compassionate thoughts, it creates that level of harmonious energy.
I think it moves the meter.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. It's just it's shifting consciousness, and
Yes.
it's shifting towards goodness.
Why?
The
Because shift happens.
shift happens. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
thank
it's
you,
always
Dr. Dyer.
things are always shifting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a spectacular chat today, my friend.
Yeah.
You know,
I
always
think
great.
I think we covered a lot of topics as always.
Yeah, this is always great. Thank you for coming by again.
No, thank you.
You've been listening to Quantum Flow Radio. Email us online at quantumflowradio@gmail.com.